Most people think they're diversified. They're not. And the scariest part, you won't find out until it's too late. In this video, I'm going to show you how the wrong portfolio can wipe out a decade of returns, why most portfolios are completely exposed, what real diversification actually looks like, the investments you can buy, and whether you actually make less money diversifying. But before we continue, what is diversification? Put simply, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. You want to own different things so that if one thing goes down, you're not wiped out. Sounds simple, right? But it's actually not that simple, because you can follow that advice, feel like you've done the right thing, and still be completely exposed. And that's exactly what's happening to most investors right now. Let's go back to the year 2000, when the dot-com bubble just popped. You're in the S&P 500. You do everything right, invest consistently, and stay the course. Fast forward to 2010, 10 years later. You check your account and you're exactly where you started. That was a lost decade. 10 years of investing and you didn't make a single dollar. That's like spending a decade on a treadmill, sweaty, tired, and still staring at the same wall. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Baron Malkiel, one of the most respected names in investing, looked at this exact period. He found that if instead of just owning the S&P 500, you had a mixed basket of index funds, US stocks, international stocks, emerging markets, bonds, and real estate, during that same lost decade, you would have averaged 6.7% per year. That's the power of diversification. Diversification does its job during the worst times. Anyone can look smart in the bull market, go all in on Apple in 2019 and get a 500% return, but it could have easily gone the other way. Ray Dalio, one of the greatest investors alive, has said that every asset class will eventually have a period when it loses 50% to 70% of its value. That's what diversification is for. When your AI stocks are getting cooked, something else in your portfolio is keeping you alive. Diversification isn't about maximizing your best year. It's about surviving your worst ones, which always comes eventually. Beginners usually say they own Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Nvidia, and then boldly claim, I'm diversified. I used to do this too, but what happens to all 5 of those stocks if there's a major regulation on big tech? They all drop at the same time. That's the problem. It's not about how many stocks you own, it's about whether those stocks move together. When the stocks move together, they're correlated and basically the same bet. You might as well be holding one stock. Here's where it gets sneaky though. A lot of people think they're diversified because they own an S&P 500 ETF. The S&P 500 is great, but right now the top 10 companies make up nearly a third of the entire index. So even your diversified index fund has hidden concentration in a handful of mega cap tech names. When your portfolio is too correlated and too concentrated, you're not diversified and you don't have a safety net. You have a single point of failure, and when it breaks, everything else breaks with it. When I first started investing, I thought owning 20 different stocks made me diversified, but at the end of the day, they were all just stocks. I have variety within one asset class and called it diversification. That's like ordering 20 different items at McDonald's and calling it a balanced diet. The moment something bad happens in the stock market, my entire portfolio was going down with it. There was nothing else holding me up. So, what does real diversification look like? Dalio calls this the holy grail of investing. You need 15 uncorrelated bets. They don't have to be great picks, just decent ones that don't move together. Stocks, bonds, real estate, gold, commodities, alternative investments. When one is getting crushed, the others are keeping you afloat. If you build a portfolio like this, you can reduce your risk by around 80%. You'll also get 5 times more return for the same amount of risk. Put differently, you're not just protecting yourself, you're actually improving your results. So now that you know what type of assets to buy, when do you actually buy it? Funny enough, you can actually diversify across time, not just across assets. In doing so, you will likely end up with a higher return than most people. Instead of trying to time the market, you invest a fixed amount consistently, every month, regardless of what the market is doing. This is called dollar cost averaging. If this is making sense, hit subscribe. I make this stuff simple every week. Now, building a true 15 asset holy grail portfolio with real estate, gold, commodities, and alternatives, that's honestly a whole series on its own. So let's start with the foundation that covers most people's needs. For stocks, you need 2 ETFs. That's it. VTI, the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF, which has over 3,500 US companies, every sector under one ticker. VXUS, the Vanguard Total International Stock ETF. It covers developed and emerging markets outside of the US, such as Europe, Asia, and Latin America. Together, they give you the entire global stock market in 2 funds. Then, for bonds, you can use BND, the Vanguard Total Bond Market ETF. This smooths out the volatility and gives your portfolio something to lean on when stocks are struggling. 3 funds, genuinely diversified and low cost. This is the foundation the best long-term investors build on, not just because it's the lazy option, but also because it works. Some of you might be thinking, but tech outperformed everything for the last decade. If I had just put it all in QQQ, I'd be way richer right now. Yeah, you would've, and I get why that's compelling. Sometimes I think the same way. This fund got a 469% last year, but my index funds only got 10%. What the hell? But here's the problem. We're using hindsight to justify a strategy that felt like a gamble at the time. Nobody in 2012 knew tech was going to dominate the next decade. Nobody in 2020 knew it was going to drop 30% in 2022. This is a stock picking bias. We look back at the winners and say, I should have just invested in that. But for every person who went all in on tech and won, there's someone who went all in on energy or biotech and is still waiting to break even. Everything is cyclical. The S&P was considered a lost cause after 2000. International stocks had a decade of underperformance before coming back. What's cold right now was hot before, and what's hot right now will be cold eventually. And by the time you hear about the hot thing, by the time it's on the news and in your group chat, you're already too late. The people who made the real money got in before you knew it existed. It's like showing up to a party at 2 a.m. Everyone's already had a great time, the food is gone, and now you're just there for the cleanup. Diversification doesn't maximize your returns in any given year. What it does is protect you from the years everything goes wrong. And that protection actually improves your long-term outcome because it keeps you in the game when the markets get ugly. The goal isn't to win a single year, it's to be standing 30 years from now. Everything I just showed you is the foundation. But here's the problem. It doesn't matter how well diversified your portfolio is if the IRS is taking half of your returns every year. You can do everything right and still walk away with a fraction of what you should have. Most people have no idea this is happening to them. And the difference between someone who gets this right and someone who doesn't isn't just a few $100s, but over $660,000 over their lifetime. So watch this video next because that's exactly what we're going to get into.